It's the land of the Pilgrims and the perfect storm. Massachusetts. No other state has played such an important role in America's history. It was here where a band of settlers defined the aspirations of a nation, and where brave militiamen fought the first battles of the American Revolution. Aerial Massachusetts explores the tales of two cities. One hailed as the cradle of liberty, the other where 18 innocent women were condemned to hang. It was in this small northeastern state that fans suffered through the longest curse in sport history, and where 6 men famously set sail but never returned from the sea. From rolling hills that inspired one of America's most loved writers, to fields that are flooded every year to harvest colorful native berries. This is Massachusetts, the heart of New England. Henry David Thoreau once wrote of this wild coast, "A man may stand there and put all of America behind him." Massachusetts is not actually America's easternmost state. That honor belongs to Maine. But anyone on the Cape Cod National Seashore would never know the difference. This beach and the sea before it are as wild as it gets. It's a protected wilderness that stretches across 43,000 acres of pristine beaches, marshes, and ponds. The first inhabitants of this coast were Native Americans called the Wampanoag. They fished these waters that were rich with cod, sturgeon, and shellfish. On November 11th, 1620, a ship called the Mayflower rounded the tip of Cape Cod. On board were 102 passengers, pilgrims, servants, crew, and other laborers, all joined together to start an English colony in the New World. They first anchored here in what's now Provincetown Harbor. Today, Provincetown is a lively seaport. Its stunning views of the Atlantic have made it a haven for artists. But the Pilgrims saw this coast with a different eye. One of the Mayflower's passengers, William Bradford, who went on to become governor of the new colony, described the coast as a hideous and desolate wilderness. Ultimately, the Pilgrims didn't settle in Provincetown. They chose instead a more sheltered location just across Cape Cod Bay and named it Plymouth, after the English port from which they had departed 66 days earlier. A replica of the Mayflower lies in Plymouth Harbor and provides a glimpse of the cramped conditions on board for these 102 eager souls who traveled with their animals, tools, and weapons. Before heading to shore, the Pilgrims decided to establish new laws for their colony. All 41 men aboard stood on the ship's deck and signed a contract that's known as the Mayflower Compact. That contract is honored here at Plymouth's National Monument to the Forefathers. On the main pedestal stands the 36-foot-tall statue of Faith pointing towards the heavens. Seated below her are 4 figures representing the key principles of the Mayflower Compact: freedom, morality, law, and education. These virtues would become the foundation of America's democracy. The monument's inscription reads, "Erected by a grateful people in remembrance of their labors, sacrifices, and sufferings for the cause of civil and religious liberty." The Pilgrims' first settlement was built on land belonging to the Wampanoag. it's possible to imagine life in this early colony here on the Plymouth Plantation, a painstakingly researched recreation of the colonists' first village. The Pilgrims constructed modest timber-framed houses and raised livestock. Members of the Wampanoag helped the settlers try to survive, but during their first winter here, more than half of the Pilgrims died of diseases such as scurvy and pneumonia. They called this period the Great Sickness. After a disastrous start, new arrivals from England joined the survivors, and by 1627, the Plymouth colony was on the road to prosperity. But the Wampanoag weren't so lucky. Their hospitality was rewarded with plague. European diseases ended up wiping out 2/3 of the tribe. The story goes that it was here in 1621 that the Pilgrims held the first Thanksgiving. But long before then, Native Americans had celebrated successful harvests of their own with annual feasts. The Pilgrim celebration likely didn't happen in late November, but earlier in the fall, when they harvested their crops of corn, barley, and peas. It is said that a Wampanoag chief turned up to celebrate too, with 5 freshly killed deer and 90 men. More than 200 years later, in 1863, President Abraham Lincoln officially made Thanksgiving a national holiday. The Pilgrims weren't the only band of English settlers to seek freedom in Massachusetts. In 1630, a second group arrived. They called themselves Puritans, after their wish to purify the English church. They disembarked in a sheltered harbor to the north and started to build what John Winthrop, future governor of the new colony, called a city on a hill, one that they hoped the world would admire. That city is now Boston, a metropolis of more than 4.5 million people. Just as it was for the Pilgrims, education was a guiding principle for Boston's founders. Just 5 years after the Puritans arrived, they established Boston Latin School. It is now the oldest public school in America and among the best high schools in the country. 4 presidents of Harvard are among its graduates, along with 4 governors of Massachusetts and 4 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence, including John Hancock and Samuel Adams.